welcome to the Mime Radio Show. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin. And behind us in that dark volume of blackness back there behind the image lurks our producer, Mike Diaz. He's there. He's listening to us right now. And at any moment, he could turn off the circuits and this thing would just go into the ether.
Yeah, so we have to be nice to him.
Thank you, Mike, for everything that you do.
Yeah.
Today's guest, very excited about this person. Let me tell you something about him. Our guest, Stephen Buescher, is considered one of the leading young artists and theater teachers, master teachers in American physical theater today. He says, quote, "Movement training sits at the intersection where perspiration, observation, inspiration, and imagination collide. The body thinks, the body plays, the body acts. Come to play at full capacity and ferociously engage the live theatrical event," unquote. Stephen Buescher is an actor, director, choreographer, and teaching artist who has designed and led movement training curriculums for various master's programs, including Brown University, Trinity Repertory Consortium, and the American Conservatory Theater. He is currently professor in the MFA professor of movement in the MFA at University of California, San Diego. He has directed and acted in many theaters and festivals throughout the world. Stephen also has been a longtime company member with Delarte International, performing both nationally and internationally. And with that, let us welcome in Stephen Buescher.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Welcome, Stephen. We're so glad that you're here with us today.
Yeah, and I see how the ambient light is flooding your room because he's in San Diego where it's never cloudy, never cloudy. It's always a sunny outlook. So he's bringing the world of, what should we say, eccentric theater, among other things, to San Diego from his illustrious past.
Yes, from my beachfront property.
Yeah.
Shine the sunshine on physical theater. That's great. We're so glad you're here. Stephen, we always like to start with like how the actor prepares, how the performer prepares. Also, like how do you prepare for when you're about to teach or start a new directing project? So what is your process for getting yourself hyped up and ready, or calmed down and ready?
Wow, that's a lot. First, this is fantastic being here. I'm super excited and seeing the luminaries that are already in the mix getting interviewed. It's so fantastic. So how do I prepare? I mean, as a teacher, I prepare by I always go in with a lot of notes. Mm-hmm. I kind of have gotten good at splitting my mind because, we're all kind of multitasking. So I'm able to go, okay, switch your mind. Now I'm just thinking about teaching this class, switch your mind. I'm thinking about choreographing this thing, switch your mind, this thing at home I have to remember. So I'm really good at compartmentalizing that so I can take the next 12 minutes and just hone in on teaching or just hone in on whatever else I have to do. So teaching prep, I always have a lot of notes. I'm ready to go in the class with a lot of notes, thoughts. But then as soon as I step in the room, my whole thing is feeling the vibe. Are we going to be able to do this thing? Do we want to do this thing? Ooh, I feel the vibe. I'm getting rid of all this stuff because we can do this other thing. So for me, it's all about tapping into that energy and, and being able to use what's really in the room. Or I find in teaching, it's going against the energy that's in the room. So sometimes, thinking about being in San Francisco when Trump was, I almost said hired. I guess Trump was hired. When Trump was hired, that there were a lot.
He was lifted up. Was he hired?
Yeah, exactly.
His cranium lifted him into the air like those balloons we've seen in New York City in parades or whatever.
Yeah. So that energy was affecting your students?
Oh my gosh, because a lot of different students are families there was a high school group in San Francisco whose families were a lot of undocumented folks and just different people from all over, and what it meant for them possibly to have this new president. So the vibe was very heavy, heavy, heavy. And sometimes I find that do we work with that vibe? And so you create from that vibe, or do you try to go against that vibe to pull and drag everybody into some new place? So that's one of those teaching moments. As a performer, and somebody who's creating, like as a director choreographer, as soon as I get into the project, I believe that everything starts to talk to me about the project. So I'm listening to what my kids are saying. I remember I got one idea off of the back of a U-Haul truck. There was something I was figuring out about pathways, and I saw something, and it was all these different rivers, and I was like parked behind the U-Haul truck, and I was like, that's it. It's going to be that thing where the rivers collide, and that's how the end choreography is going to have. So everything just starts to talk to me, and because I'm available to it, I don't have to do much except make sure I get notes of what that person in line at the grocery store just said about their cousin, because that's actually the next thing we needed in the play. So that
I have two questions about that. One is, do you end up with more notes down the line after these sessions? Like, I know I have notes too, but then I always end up, or through my career, I've always ended up with more notes afterwards. Sometimes I never look at them again, but it helps me to. And the other question was, where does this keen sense of observation in the moment come from? Like, you and I have talked maybe before about how we were both athletes. Does maybe that experience of being an athlete, where you're trained physically to perform at a high level, you have to be aware of everything, like that's going on.
I think it could be that athletic thing. I mean, I played baseball, so baseball, it's funny, maybe it's one of the sports that's the most, you don't know when it's going to come to you. So there's a lot of waiting involved. In a way, there's a lot of waiting.
You have to be waiting with readiness, which is sort of what you were describing. Like, you're sort of open to all these ideas, you're ready for them.
Totally. And depending on how the other people are positioned, and if you have runners on, I've run 7 different scenarios through my head of what might happen. So I feel like that's something. I also feel like being a kid growing up in Chicago in the 70s, that was an amazing, fun time. But it's a time of subway trains and breakdance battles and DJ music and huge house parties and beginning of like our school fighting this other school and dances. And so it was just like I was involved in so many different landscapes that I got really good at being where I was and thinking about places that I was not. Kind of simultaneously.
Let's get into the microcosm. So that moment, that the split second before you enter the moment, before you come in front of the public or enter the stage, or the moment before you hit the ball, so to speak, that split moment, can you talk about what might go through your mind or your body, what the atmosphere in your own being might be in that split moment of, here's the curtain and now I'm here. Like,
What's
that like for you?
I love that moment. I'm glad you're asking about that moment. I love that. Being a company member at Delarte for 10 plus years, got to perform outside in their amphitheater a lot of the time. So you could always like be peeking through the curtain and seeing who's there. Or also, if you get on the second floor, there's a huge glass window and you're able to see like who's down, oh, look, there's that group over there. Oh, look, the kids are over there. Oh, there's our stalwart folks. So that's like one layer of it for me. Like, who's here? I want to know who's here. Even if they're strangers, I want to know what they're dressed like, who's talking, who's quiet, who's looking at the program. But then that moment, like from backstage to bam, I really try to, of course I do anything like that, but I really try to like empty out everything. And my prayer before that moment is always, please let me hear, please let me see. And then I go in.
Ah,
I really want to, I know that because it's live, what's going to happen in the moment is always going to be better than that thing that I planned, just because I like improvisation.
Yeah.
yeah.
And what does that force of nature in front of you, that audio, what does that represent? Do you have any thoughts about that? Like not like age or culture, but going deeper, like what is that dynamic between you on as the teacher and performer and then that body of witnesses or participant? I mean, what do they represent to you?
I don't know what they represent, but the energy of a group of people is just like unstoppable. That's why I understand things like what happened at the Capitol January 6th. It's like when you get, if you've ever been in a, I mean, that's like a protest. If you're in a protest, if you're in a that, I was at some festival. It was San Fermin. So this is the running of the bulls. We were in some plaza. This is like when I'm 19 and we ran with the bulls.
Really? You ran with the bulls?
Yeah. So stupid. That's a longer story, but oh my God, I saw some things that I can never unsee. But there was a plaza, there was something happening in this plaza that had apartments on 4 sides and only like 2 narrow ways in. So there were literally, I don't know, were there 800, 900 people packed, so packed that you're like this, you can't, if you wanted to go anywhere, you're not. And so if the crowd is moving, you're moving. If people are like surging forward, you're like along for the ride getting surged. There, and the power of the group of people when they're together is like unbeatable. And I feel that same way. I know we have like, there's usually a chasm between the stage and the audience, but the energy that comes back and forth, I'm really interested in that energy and like how to play with it comedically, like, silly putty and that stuff that moves Mercury, or like how you can change it in a second and have everybody like on pins and needles waiting for the next moment. And then
everybody holding their breath. Wait, what's the next thing gonna be? Yeah.
Their breath.
That's so interesting how you describe that kind of like no woman's land, no person's land between the audience. Like, what is that? What are the links? What are the challenges? What is the electricity and the atoms and what goes on there? And then I think that's a large part of why physical theater is so electric to me, is because you have to study that dynamic in a visceral way that goes mentally and physically into your being, right?
Totally. I got to tell this one story. I was performing with my wife, and I and some other friends were performing with Clowns Without Borders in Nepal.
Oh, wow. And
one of the places we performed was for a Bhutanese refugee camp that had, I think they said 14,000 people came to watch us clown. So everybody, we were in like a postage stamp little area, and literally you saw people as far as you could see. People were in every single tree around. The people in the front of the stage were as many as the people behind the curtain. So when you went behind the curtain, you had to keep performing because now those people are seeing you. But this to say, they had people with bamboo rods who were like banging the audience back so that we could have that chasm. So they were getting hit back, not hit hard, but definitely like we're making sure that there's room for the performers, and they spread everybody out. So we kind of had this wide room now because, we're doing acrobatics and all kinds of stuff. And then, so they got everybody back, we're ready to perform. And I'll never forget it, one little girl, she was probably like 6 or 7 years old. She decided that she wanted to get closer. So she ducked under a bamboo rod and ran to get closer.
Wow.
As soon as she made that move, 10 other people ducked. Now 20, now 100, now 500 people are rushing the stage. And Rudy Galindo was like, nobody move. Nobody make any kind of move that seems like you're performing at all.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone to think it has started so that they have to get even closer. Cause we have people now like this almost touching us.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
It
that part of
Wow.
nature, the part of human nature.
What did you do?
Well, I was going to say first that this is the rock star energy that can be in performance, because that's the way people treat celebrities. You know, this trigger. I've had these experiences. You're in Mexico. You're talking about. It's like there's this trigger, and then suddenly the masses are unleashed. You know.
Yeah.
If you can harness and understand that dynamic, wow, what an amazing theater maker you would be. You know, like.
Totally. I mean, we just stayed still. We did that thing. We weren't trying to perform. We weren't trying to make jokes. I mean, they were really just trying to get closer.
Mhm.
But then if the people, 2,000 people back are trying to get closer, we're now getting crushed. The other thing that ran through our minds afterwards were, what if everybody was hungry? What if everybody hadn't eaten for a while or hadn't, have nowhere to live? Now that's because Clowns Without Borders goes to those places too, where people haven't eaten in a while. So that was not our scenario, but if you threw something like that on top of it, or if people didn't like that we were there, now we're in a
Wow.
whole nother scenario.
Wow.
Wow,
My
so
goodness. What do you do? You mentioned working for many years with Delarte and touring. When you're with a group like that, with Clowns Without Borders, you're in a group with Delarte. In your experience, what's the group preparation for putting on a show?
Delarte was always interesting, especially when we toured. It's not, and I'm kind of like more in mainstream circuits now, where it's like you have your stage manager, you have this one, you have these people who do that. Don't touch the props. These people do that. Back in ensemble world, and I know the ensemble world is expanding, which is so exciting. Shout out to Network of Ensemble Theaters and everybody doing ensemble work. We were like, when we were in Budapest and we went to Croatia taking this show Paradise Lost, we're the one unloading 500 sandbags off the truck. We're opening it, we're watering down the sand, we're washing clothes. So part of the prep is that kind of stuff. That's not like, hey, let's all do this kind of calisthenic together.
Right.
But we're prepping by how we're kind of preparing the house. Making the party that's about to happen. And then, we always kind of breathe together and see each other and feel like where we are, so that we know where we need to go. Because sometimes, in ensemble, hey, I'm not feeling a certain way today. So we're feeling a certain way. So we'll carry you. You don't have to worry about that. We got you. Or everybody's buzzing on the same thing, and oh yeah, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
I mean, this is wonderful, the experiences you're describing. So we have this, as you called it, what did you call the world that you're in now? You called it what was the word you used?
Sort of like this mainstream, like
mainstream
Lord theater world.
Which, but then there's all the shallows, right? The shoreline of the river, all the brooks and crannies of the arts, which are so exciting and contribute to what the mainstream is, of course, right? And of course, if you really think about a stream or a river, tributary, all the confluence comes from out there. It doesn't come from right here. This doesn't make itself. So these are very important experiences you're describing. So and they contribute to who you are now, of course, which is really exciting. But is there, what was I don't know what my question was, other than, is there a preference that you have, or are they each valuable, or could you not do one without the other? In other words, the mainstream can make this places in the thickets and in the mangroves, it can make it more exciting if you have some technique behind you, of course. But what are your thoughts about that? How the two complement each other, those two worlds?
Yeah, that's
Maybe it should happen more often, because there's some people are frightened of either one. You know what I mean?
I've always been that person who's on the fence, who can be in different worlds. I I love them both. I mean, I love them both. It's like, I can go to the potluck and I can go to the Michelin star spot. I still feel like a lot of the work that ends up on some of these stages began in somebody's living room or somebody's basement or in somebody's little idea that you did at the picnic when we were just jacking around at the cabaret. And then it's like, oh, let's build this thing. Um,
What's the most unusual location that you've performed in or taught in?
the the most
travels.
The most unusual location was, I think it was this Nepal trip that when we had those 14,000 people after we did our show, everybody said, hey, everybody, there are so many people here. Let's just break off and improvise with smaller groups of people. Now, smaller groups of people could have meant 500, could have meant 1,200. But what we did, me and my wife and one other person, there were trucks. There was a cement truck. There was a truck, like an 18-wheeler with dirt in the back. And some of these vehicles were stopped because of all the people. We climbed up on the back of that truck in the dirt, and the driver's like, what's going on? All right, I'll check this out. So we improvised for like 20, 30 minutes in the dirt in the back of this 18-foot truck for like, I don't know, 900 people.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that's what I love about theater. It's what I love about clown. It's what I love about kind of the roots of where this is. It's what drew me to Commedia. It's like, and it's part of what I loved about growing up in Chicago with the breakdance scene. It's like a lot of this is coming from the street. And I'm really interested in the stuff that comes from the street, not necessarily from the classroom. And it's something that I try to do as a teacher, bring the street into the class or bring my students out into the street, because I think if you want to talk about realness, there's something that really gets real if you're really negotiating your comedy with the UPS driver.
Yeah. Ask him the question, Karen, about his background. I think it's
well, you've already started to talk a little bit about your childhood in Chicago, which is where I am. I'm coming from Chicago. So,
nice.
But tell us a little bit about how you grew up and how your path brought you into the arts and into theater.
Yeah. So Chicago for me, I know you probably have a different Chicago experience. Did you grow up there?
No, in St. Louis.
Oh, St. Louis. All right. St. Louis. My sister went to Webster.
Oh, wow.
So did my sister.
What's that, James?
I performed at Webster back in the 70s.
It's a great place.
An Alwyn Nikolai, I'm sure you know who that was, right? One of the modern dance pioneers.
Okay.
The company members was in residence there, and that guy saw our mime performance at that time, and he invited me to New York City to study with Alwyn Nikolai. It changed my whole perception of movement. And
that's amazing.
Improvisation, but it was at Webster College in St. Louis. Yeah,
I took one of my first professional mime classes at Webster with Sophie Wiebo and Bert Huel.
Yeah,
wow. See? Let's not knock the Midwest. Come on.
No. Okay, tell us about growing up in Chicago and how you got into theater.
Chicago was, how I got into theater. I feel like theater, what is theater? Theater is audience. Theater is like participation. So I was we're, like I said, I mentioned breakdancing, but every single day, we're pulling out cardboard, we're breakdancing. This is like 1978.
Friends, neighborhood friends, or did you go to a
Oh yeah,
special?
friends at school, public school. So I'm public school kid. Friends at school, there'd be like a crew of us, 10 to 12 of us. We're all dancing, we're breakdancing, and then some other group from some other block wants to come battle. So already you've got like ensemble, you got solo, you got audience. And if you're not good, people will boo and shout and then sit down because that wasn't good. We then got into like DJing and music mixing. So that was also coming up, and hip hop rap was coming up. So now rap. So the idea of performing with an audience and actually getting immediate, there's no like feedback or critique. No, in the moment, people say, get off. That rhyme is weak. Goodbye. Somebody else step up. So you got to be good. Or what I learned, you've got to be silly, because some people are taking it so seriously, and you got to be virtuosic and try to top that, or you can come out and say how bad you are and people go, oh,
Yeah.
oh, that was good because he knows how bad he is. Oh yeah, we like that guy. So it's like, for me, that's the beginning of clowning,
Right.
knowing that you can go low to go high.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main things growing up in Chicago that was fantastic. I was in the Chicago Children's Choir at a young age. So there was kind of like that discipline of learning a lot of different kinds of music and performing for people who are well behaved. See, here we are. We're back to like the what do I want to call it? Like the theater audience, the studio audience versus the street audience.
Yeah.
And it's like a different beast, and there's a way to like navigate those energies and those people. So I think that's where it began. And then and Black culture.
Did you have other family members that were in the arts, or are you sort of the prophet that's come into the family in some way?
Yeah, no, I'm the only artist of that interesting family. I was adopted by a white family.
Oh, wow.
A white German family. This is why my last name is Bue, for our listening audience, Buescher. So a German last name, German Lutheran family. I have an older sister, oldest brother, older sister, me who's adopted, and then my younger sister who went to Webster, who's half Black, half Vietnamese, adopted from Vietnam. She was one of the last people out during the Vietnam War that got lifted out by, I think it was called something called baby drop, by Catholic nuns who were getting a lot of kids out of Vietnam. So she was on one or the last plane out. Wow. So she ended up joining the military, National Guard. I'm in the arts. My sister is does solar and is a wildlife biologist working with turtles and squirrels. My brother is like a high level math person. My dad worked for the Navy, naval avionics, working with planes and trajectories of bombs. Later, I find out. And my mother, an editor and a writer, ordained minister. Wow. At some point. So
there's a lot of influence, a lot of energy flying around the. Yeah. It's interesting. I was adopted too.
Yeah. Oh, who knew?
Talked enough time about the theory of how adoption might crystallize an artist, because there's some interesting dynamics there.
But Stephen, right before we started on this trajectory, you were about to say something about Black culture, and you are from a mixed race family, right? So I was in a mixed race family, right?
Yes. I'm from a mixed family, totally. And like when my friends come in the house, we're coming in listening to hip hop and house music, Chicago house music. I don't know if you know about that, but huge,
Sure.
huge. Meanwhile, in the household is Johnny Cash, John Denver, and the Beatles, and all that stuff. So these, I've always been an outsider on the inside. And at some point in my older years, I've like embraced that and not tried to be what everybody around me is. But the Black culture thing, if I remember, there's like jokes and humor is part of Black culture, like talking about somebody's flaws, or talking about flaws about blah blah blah, that you roast somebody. So as part of like,
It's like the ultimate trash talk in sports,
exactly, you're talking trash to people every day, and it's competitions of who can most like poetically and humorously talk trash about somebody, and then how you respond. So that this is like the fabric of every single day. And then if you really want to get into it, then when you get on the bus to go home, you go to the back of the bus, because that's where all the professional trash talkers are. And if you dare, you'll go back there, but you better be careful if you're going back there. But it's all wordplay. It's all wordplay. So that, so performance, again, it's not coming from the Institute, it's coming from everyday people. And what later gets crafted as performance has been performed the whole time.
Well, it's like you're talking about someone trying to be present in this crazy, chaotic world. So, I mean, the bottom line, an actor or whatever has to be present, right? So this is all contributing to that sense of how to be present in this world that is so chaotic in some ways.
Yeah, and it's all has to do with improvisation, being in the moment, and saying yes, and what's going to happen next, right? It's like, that's so interesting that you put all of those parts together.
So how did you shift, maybe some influences that you had? How did you shift to being a professor in one of the noted world universities? How did that journey matriculate, and who influenced you, or what influenced you to come to this place?
I was in, let's see, when I was a teenager, my mom kicked me out of the house. I was in New Mexico. That's a whole nother we won't get into that because that's way longer than we have time for. But I was living in New Mexico, got kicked out of the house because I was getting into a whole lot of trouble. My mom didn't really know, but she had a feeling for that things were not good. Anyway, she kicked me out of the house to go live with my dad. My dad lived in Indianapolis, which is where I was born. Grew up in Chicago, but born in Indianapolis. So went to Indianapolis to a performing arts high school. Oh. So when I was a junior and senior. So in high school, I went to 3 different high schools. So again, who's the guy wandering around with the cafeteria tray looking for who to sit with? It's me. Oh, I did that for 3 out of 4 years of high school. Wow. So being with all the weirdos in theater, why are you wearing trench coats and black makeup, and you're dressed as a mime, and this one's doing that, and this is weird, but for some reason this kind of feels like my people, in that you all are breaking rules. So that's kind of how I got a little more serious. And then as I got more into the performing arts high school, it was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to pursue. So how this got me into teaching, I got into every college I applied to, but couldn't afford to go to any of them. So then my mom said, hey, come live with me. I make no money, get on my taxes, and then try again. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I moved in with her, lived with her, I want to say for 3 weeks. And she said, I can't live with you anymore, Stephen. I'm moving out. What?
She moved out.
She moved out. She moved out of the apartment. I was like, what? I don't know. I'm 18. I don't know how to do this, but I guess I'll figure it out. So then I was at Pima Community College in Tucson, Arizona now. So community college for a year. And somebody came to speak at the college who was friends with the head of the department, Barclay Goldsmith, named Libby Apple. So Libby Apple came and spoke about Cal Arts, and here's what she was doing at Cal Arts, and here's the work she was doing. And I was like, that's where I'm going. So my sister was living in California at the time, and I had an audition. I was like, I got to get to Cal Arts by X amount of time. I'm gonna fly there, blah blah. So I flew in. Da, da, da. I need to get there. She was like, Steven, I have a car, but it doesn't go in reverse. You should be fine. Take the car. You're gonna make it. Just be fine. So I'm driving a car that can't go in reverse.
What a metaphor.
This is pre-GPS. This is like those maps, the Macmillan or whatever the heck those are.
Great. This is a great story. This is a metaphor, poetic metaphor. This is a car that can't go in reverse, and I'm leaving the state. This is good.
We're going. So I'm totally lost. This is maybe more the world of pagers. I don't have a cell phone. So I pull off to this. There's only one parking spot. And I pull, and it requires that I back up. And I wasn't thinking, I'm just almost late now. So I go in, I say, hey, where's Valencia, California? I'm trying to get to this place. He talks to somebody else. We think it's that way. You got to go north on the thing. And there's McBean Parkway. We think it's off of there. Great, thanks. Back to the car. Shoot, forgot I was, hey, can you all help me push this car out? So they left. We're pushing the car out, back on the road. I make it into the audition. Literally, there were 60 other people there, all sitting down nicely in their things with their headshots on their lap. And I come in huffing and puffing, sweating. And basically, as soon as I hit my seat, they say, okay, who'd like to go first? So that was my audition for Cal Arts. And then I got in, and that was the beginning of like the real theater. But how that links to me as a teacher, I was we had to take Tai Chi classes for 4 years with Sherry Chernish at the time as part of the training. And I want to say within my first month, the teacher said, Steven, I want you to start giving your classmates adjustments. I was like, adjustments? I've only been doing this for 3 weeks. I don't know what I'm doing. No. Yeah, you do. Go ahead. If you see something that's not quite right in how they're holding in their body, go ahead and give them some feedback and give them some adjustments. So that happened simultaneously as training for the theater. I was always like teaching. So that has never stopped. And it's just, I've continued both the whole time. So it was never like something to fall back on.
How do you think the two relate to each other? Because that's an interesting, they both take so much energy. How do they complement each other? What are the challenges, do you think, of being in both worlds?
I think in the teaching world requires maybe like a I don't know, a dentist or a surgeon. Like sometimes you do get something sweet and something nice, and this is good, and other times you don't. And we're going to try to cut that thing out that keeps getting in the way of what you really need to be doing. And I think a good teacher knows when to use what tool. And I think it's a lot more, I was a glass blowing assistant at one point, getting the glass from the hot bed and rolling it into the thing that then the glass blower puts the actual glass on. So there's something about the heat has to get to a certain level, or we can't work with the materials yet. And sometimes students want to keep things at a certain temperature because they're uncomfortable, or because this, or they're scared, or this or that. It's like, no. We got to get hotter and hotter and hotter. And there's no way to explain it. You just got to get there, and I'm going to try to put you there.
So does your performance world contribute to the knowledge of how to find those tools in terms of transferring? My question was the relationship between being a performer and being a teacher. How do they intersect for you?
Yeah. I mean, as a performer and a teacher, I'm constantly listening to my partners, teaching my partners or the students, performing. It's who's on stage, or it's the audience, or it's this phone that I'm improvising with, or whatever the thing is. That's my partner. So I'm trying to listen and have some back and forth with these partners. And that doesn't change as a teacher. And as a teacher, at least how I approach it kind of like a party, that you're trying to create atmospheres and environments where the thing you want to happen is more likely to happen.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of second thoughts? I mean, you have this wonderful background that, like, in large part came from the street, as you say, and from all these adventures and family turmoils and dilemmas. Do you feel being a professor is difficult for you sometime, or is it alien at some time, or does all these experiences make a true professor? You know what I'm saying? Or the true master teacher?
Yeah, I like that you did a professor, because as soon as you did that, I saw somebody in a tweed jacket and somebody with a briefcase, and it's like, no, this is what this professor looks like. I'm gonna play this music when you come in. I'm gonna turn out all the lights, and there's gonna be one lamp in the middle of the space. So I think what's possible to happen in a classroom, and like what professor could be, and what exchange of information can look like, can shift. And that's something I learned at Delarte, because I saw teachers literally throw students into the middle of the room. I've seen teachers throw water at students.
Mr. Foreman, did Mr. Foreman do that sort of
Mr.
thing?
Foreman's one of. Michael Fields is another one.
But clarify, Stephen, like throw them because that's what the student needed, or were they using their authority in an inappropriate way? I mean, is it what? Well, because that happens too. There are some teachers that are so full of their own ego that they want to be the one in charge, that maybe they're not the best kind of a teacher. But there are others that are like, you need this push.
Yes. This was an exercise. Michael Fields, one of the longtime company members, he had an exercise where there's a socket in the middle of this beautiful, well, at the time, beautiful, I think it was a redwood floor. Mm-hmm. But there was a power socket in the middle, and his exercise was like, the closer you get to the socket, the more you have to like physicalize and be out of your mind and just going off of impulse. So of course, a lot of students want to avoid that socket. So he would kind of see the students who want to avoid it and literally push them towards the socket. So that was kind of it's part of the game of it. But I mean, in the opposite side of it, and people like Ronlin, I've seen hold hands with a student and like cry with a student. And as somebody who's witnessing that, seeing the professor, the master teacher, I'm going, I didn't know you were allowed to hold a student. I didn't know you could hold a student's hands. I didn't know you could cry with a student. So
Delarte was a big influence on you in some ways, right?
Delarte was a major influence of like how things could happen, and also like how you could imagine them happening. And at the time, like even I joined the company, and then the next year I became a student, and everybody was like, whoa, why are you becoming a student after you join the company? People become a student so that they can join the company. But I was like, I want to know what they know. And also like the student spirit at Delarte is so strong that you're surrounded by people who are pushing the form, pushing the boundaries all of the time. So that can't help but influence me as a performer and me as a teacher, going, ooh, you all just completely changed what this exercise was. And now I have to rethink what I'm thinking about gravity.
Did you ever feel you had to escape sometimes? Like the influence was so strong, or? I don't know what I mean by escape. Maybe you can get my gist, but was there a was there always an outlet for you? Because it sounds like a very consuming experience in many ways. Was there always an escape door somewhere that you could use temporarily, or maybe down the road that you knew the hallway was over there with the exit? I mean, you know what I'm driving at here?
I don't know.
We're not talking about a cult, are we?
I'm not. I don't think I would. Well, is that? I don't know that I would ever use the word escape. I don't think I've ever used that in my whole entire life.
Okay.
If you're, so I don't know if I'm going to translate this in what you're thinking about, because I'm from the city, because I'm from apartments, because I'm from 7 things, 10 things happening at once, and that people screaming at each other and throwing things can live next to somebody writing a beautiful poem. It's like, I feel like that chaos, I'm at peace in that chaos. I don't need to go to the woods. I can feel like totally grounded in that chaos. So how I had to exit and leave sometimes was that the institute that became Delarte is no longer big enough for the ideas that I personally have. So at one point we rented some other studio space like down the street, and we rented it so that we could do the work we wanted to do.
You launched at some point. You found the launching pad.
Yeah.
And you
Totally.
could also, sounds like you could also find the eye of the storm and live there for as long as you wanted, but then enter back into the hurricane when you needed that energy. Yeah.
Totally. And I think, I mean, you all understand as people who make work, it's like at some point, somebody else can't tell you, no, we're not going to make that work. It's like, it's not really for you to say that this is work I got to make right now. So it's really not up for consensus and negotiation. So if I can't make it here, I'm going to make it over there because I got to make it.
Yeah. What talk a little bit about like your work as a director and a choreographer, and what is particularly with devised theater when you're creating a piece with a group of people. Do you have like any sort of like process or like a method or a step-by-step, the way that you bring a group together so that they can create together?
I mean, how I am, too bad you can't see my desk, but you can imagine, like, I live in clutter, and here's why.
I would never know your nice, your wall and your art and your.
It looks very zen. It looks very plain, and
doesn't it? Right. That's intentional.
Yeah.
But that my wife has a lot to do with that too. But for me, I like random encounters with ideas and things. So if somebody wants to clean up my space, it's not helpful, because I like seeing everything. And then as I'm looking for something, I pull something up that I haven't seen in 6 months. It's like, oh yeah, that note, that thing, which I never would have found if it was like mask work file, clown file, physical characterization file. So I don't file things. I throw everything together, and then the filing is like the curating. So when I begin a new project with people, I just recently got back from New York working. There's an ensemble called Fiasco in New York. They do a lot. Well, they've been together, I want to say 15, 20 years making work together. They do a lot of stuff with, it's one of these things where all the actors play like 5 and 6 instruments. So music is a big part. They like text. They do a lot of Shakespeare. So I said, with you all, they said, Stephen, pitch us an idea. I said, Streetcar Named Desire. And they were like, what? And what are you doing with that play? And wow, you want us to do that? So, there's a lot to navigate. There's the thing to navigate of people who have been working together for 15 or 20 years. They were students of mine, whatever, 20 years ago, but now they've all become the Tony Award winning and well-known people that they are. So it's what I do as part of the process. I try to throw people off balance from the beginning. Uh, Whether that's, hey, everybody, let's all get in a corner and sing a lullaby while you're slowly rocking across the room. And then I might give you text from the play to say, huh? Why are we doing? I don't know. Just go. So things that for me might not have to do with where we're ultimately going to end up, but it's all part of how are we making a space for anything to happen. And if an actor ensemble member can understand that anything can happen, then I can start bringing in anything can happen proposals. And then this thing can just get bigger and bigger and bigger because we're all now dreaming together. So that's kind of, I make sure not to, I avoid things like syllabuses. I mean, I have to do things like that, but like the syllabus is the thing. What's that other thing? Oh, rubrics and syllabuses and agendas and stage manager lists. It's like, no.
So even though with this particular group, you had the script for the Tennessee Williams that you were basing it on, but you're like trying to go way off in the distance before you actually came down to the text.
Yeah, because things, like alcoholism is in this play. Racial dynamic against Black people is in this play. Rape is in this play. So there's a lot of things like that it's like, all right, how are we gonna like drill down on these big topics? And like an idea of how devised nature messes with this particular thing. I was interested in Blanche. The more she drinks, the more she gets drunk, the more she performs, the more it becomes like cabaret burlesque. So that's what we were exploring, her with the microphone and costumes and boas and things like, but then she gets like pulled out of that world and she's back in the world of Stanley and stuff, who doesn't want any of those feathers, none of the pink light. Let's just get back to it. So I think I love circus world. I love cabaret. I love burlesque. I love all of it. I probably should have been like in Paris, Harlem Renaissance, or
No, you're answering a question that I had in my head. So this podcast is called The Mime Radio Show, right? So I'm wondering why you think we were interested in interviewing you. Now, there's a lot of different angles there because we probably think mime is not the cliche. Karen and I,
right?
And you just answered it on the way you just answered it because you said you love the cabaret, you love all these, the circus, all this. So, in some ways, how do you define what you do, and why would that be of interest to the Mime Radio Show? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. It goes back to everything that I see in Black culture. Okay, well, like I was talking about wordplay, breakdancing. Like inside of breakdancing is that you're impersonating people. You're impersonating how somebody else just danced. You're impersonating how somebody is with, their girlfriend. You're impersonating this group that showed up all tricked out with their clothes. So all of that is nonverbal. So you have to be able to talk about people without words because you got music blasting. I've always been interested in animation. Yeah. I'm Bugs Bunny era, maybe less Mickey Mouse, but definitely Bugs Bunny and all that vaudeville that's inside of that. Yeah. So vaudeville has always been an interest. People who are able to impersonate and take on other people for comic sake has always been an interest. I wasn't exposed to a lot of mime. Like, I'm thinking like, I don't know, Shields and Yarnell, are those mime?
Right. That's it. right?
And I think maybe a taste of Marcel Marceau. Again, it's whatever was on those 6 TV stations that we had growing up. But somebody like Dick Van Dyke was like, ooh,
Yeah.
what that guy is doing, or the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz. That speaks to me.
So
So
you kind of fit in with us because our definition of mime is a broad one. It includes a lot of different things. So you're in with us.
Yeah, I'm also thinking that, I mean, culture does play a strong part of it. Like in some ways, the physical theater art, the mime art is about every person. It's about, like in my background, the African American students were always really interested in what I did. Not because of the white face, or just there was some kind of neutrality of existence that could cut through all the racial problems that we have in culture and all those. The mime was speaking to what life was, and there's different ways to express that, but there's a common, just in terms of spirituality, there's a common breath of humanity in it. So I'm thinking that just, like as a Black man yourself, that you would gravitate toward that, the sense of mime in a big sense, because it does treat, it's about humanity, and it's about, like understanding the dynamics of how to be, in lots of different ways, and the challenges involved.
I would say, mime to me is poetic. And now I guess the thing is about what poets do you like? I was always struck with the mimes that I saw, that the content was always whimsical, or you like you say, walking against wind, getting stuck in a box. It wasn't like being pulled over by a cop. So I made a mime piece that's heavily, we haven't talked about my connection to the deaf community, but the deaf community has whole mime as part of the artistic extension of sign language, and how deaf artists have continued to express inside of the form. So deaf artists and sign mime is something that has heavily influenced me. But anyway, like this piece, I did a piece, it was a response to, I still do it for my students, to all the young Black folks who are getting killed by cops. Right. So I got tired of coming in every day to class, and now we're all upset and we're crying again over this event that happened. And then you get numb, and then, oh, that happened again. So I was like, okay, I need to make a piece about this. So I made a piece of, regular Black dude just going out for a walk, and gets harassed by a cop, and just because he was on his phone talking to his girlfriend. This is all mime. Cop pulls out a gun, ends up shooting him 5 times. He goes to the ground, but in this piece, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. It's actually a good thing, because he's a vampire, and actually his prey is cops that prey on young Black men. So he knows that. So he dresses the part, and when he's ready to feed, he just goes out and knows what to do to attract attention. So that's the piece. It's comic, it's serious, it's virtuosic, and it says something. So I feel like that's, for me as an artist, I use mime to say things of content, but then I'm also working on a baseball piece where it's just about curveballs and fastballs and changeups.
You are working on a piece like that?
Yeah. Soon. I'm ready to go.
So you got your serious side, you got your message side that you're really connecting, and then you also have frivolous,
exactly,
mischievous mime, right?
Yeah.
Let me talk briefly about that project. So, like I told you, I was a basketball player.
Wait. It's time for your gift.
Yeah, you have something came in the mail, correct?
All right. Okay. It's from Chicago, Illinois. It's
Yep.
from the Mime Museum.
That's right.
Let's see what it is. Okay, hopefully it's not anthrax.
No, I don't think so.
And Karen, why would he be receiving this? What?
Well, the Mime Museum is just a collection of things that came from different mimes, but we're running out of space. So we're kind of deacquisitioning some of our things. So we're sending them back to the artists. So it's a return.
I'm waiting for $1 to fall out.
It's mine. There's many dollars there.
This is good.
Yeah.
Snowscape. Snowscape. Am I reading this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this. There's hair. I don't think. Can you see that?
Yeah. It's like, it's a relic.
Okay, I'm gonna clone whoever that is later. Thank you for joining us on the Mime Radio Show. Please accept this gift from the Mime Museum collection as a token of our thanks. The Mime Museum, description, a package of tickets marked permission to play. These tickets were mistakenly printed up after a pre-production meeting when Stephen Buescher told the assistant director, actors need permission to play. And they thought permission tickets were required for the first read through. From Karen, James, and Michael. Oh, this is awesome. Who do I get to give these out to whoever I want?
So they're yours to do whatever you need to.
Now, are you seeing this or is this backwards?
Yeah, we can see it.
Hold it just a little closer.
It's a little ticket, right?
Yeah, we can read that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. I hate to say it, a lot of people need this permission.
Yeah.
But once they get it, they do amazing things.
Uh-huh.
This is great.
Yeah. You can make counterfeits if you want to make copies.
Yeah, if you run out, if you need more, you can always print more, right?
This is fan. And there's a code. There's like that. What's that called? That
little barcode there.
I love that. This is good. These were well designed.
Well, your assistant director, I think, made them. I don't know how they ended up in the museum, but now you've got them back.
Okay, this is good. I'm flying out to New York on Saturday this weekend to work on a new project, and maybe the cast needs these.
Aha, great.
This is great. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I wanted to talk to you just briefly about your baseball project. So, as I told you once, I was a basketball player for most of my life at pretty high levels, and I never did anything about basketball. But now I'm contemplating. Here I am, 75, and I'm contemplating doing something about my journey through that sport. Because it's basketball is all sports is such a cultural pot, but especially basketball. So, but it took me 75 years, and it has nothing to do with passion or anything, because the passion's always been there. But I'm curious, and you talk about curveballs and all that, like that. Those textures of the sport are incredible physical, metaphysical elements of existence, right? So maybe it took 75 years to understand that there's something that I feel comfortable being public about, because it was so personal in so many ways, and maybe not understood by everyone, because you and I both know that a lot of times the best actors have athletic backgrounds, but very often athletes joke about theater people and theater people joke about the jocks, right? Yeah. So what? Like, why now you make the decision to do something about curveballs? I'm about that. Like, because it is it's very personal.
Yeah. It's but for me, it's just playful, whimsical with this idea. Let me hold on.
Going to bring us something.
He's gone through the clouds.
Wow. Yeah. What is he going to do?
The back wall. I think he can go through the back wall there. And
he can disappear and come back again.
Yeah. Steve, he's back. Oh,
Whoa,
LV.
rebels.
Rebels.
Is that UNLV or is that in Mississippi somewhere? What is it?
This is just, this is some like random, uniform I found in some thrift store, but come
Right.
on.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, the
The
striped pants
Rebels?
and all. Yeah,
Come
the
on.
rebels.
Yeah.
I got red socks. I got a black hat with white stripes. So for me, it's and I've done a lot of talking about breakdancing a lot, but I've done a lot of West African dance. So
Ah,
I've done probably 15 years or so of West African dance. So this is gonna be the pitcher, the baseball pitcher, working to a very strong beat driven underscoring, using West African dance and just sort of dance movement to tell the story of
yeah.
this pitcher who's in the bottom of the ninth and has to catch the last catch. So it's really, it's like there's
Yeah, yeah. You know the
nothing
Wow, that
stories
set.
sounds
of
really interesting. What a great combination.
Yeah,
who
African dance and baseball?
was, right?
I don't think too many people are doing that.
No, no, it'd be very interesting. I can't
You
wait to
know,
see it.
you know who the great Hall of Famer Satchel Paige is, right? Who supposedly was 50 or 60 when he was still pitching and was in the Negro leagues for years before he was allowed into the major leagues. And
Yep.
all his stories about barnstorming in the Caribbean, and he would play maybe 900 games a year and for money, and for dictators and all the. This sounds like somebody. This character could be somebody like that. I
That's
don't know.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are shorts. This is part of like the TikTok world. This whole
Yeah.
piece will be like 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Talk
Cool.
about that. Talking about TikTok, talk about how, like, what advice do we give young people today who are interested in the arts? Like, the world changes so quickly, and especially, we don't have to talk specifically about mime as an art form, which it really is a dirty word in many quarters, misunderstood, especially in the United States. But what does a young artist, especially a young artist interested in the physicality of performance, the transformation of performance, like what do they do, with the pandemic raging and the internet with all its pitfalls and also its advantages, like what's going on there?
I mean, something that's incredible is the amount of content that people are putting up there. I kind of feel like I watch some of these things going, I should be working with this person. I should be directing this person because this could be funnier. They've
Yeah.
got something. This could be good, but it's not because you don't understand these other things.
Right.
But it's interesting. My son is a skateboarder, and two things are really interesting about what he puts online. He'll show me, he'll edit a thing and show me, he'll go to the skate park, come back, edit a thing, put music to it, put it up. The whole thing is, I don't know, 17 seconds. Later on that day, he'll say, oh, look, Papa, I got 12,000 people have viewed this thing. And I'm like, what? And not necessarily that he doesn't necessarily have a following like that, but and other people 50,000, and it just goes and goes and goes. Other skaters, like 500,000 people, will watch every post you make. So I'm talk about an audience. There's an audience. So, and then I see a lot of things coming out of theater, and it's like, oh, 54 views, oh, 72 views, and it's like, okay, there's something about this that could be crossing over and hitting a larger crowd if dot dot dot. I don't know what the if is, but the content is not what people are interested in. Here's the other thing about skateboarding. He's putting up, and the skaters are doing this, they put their failures up as much as their triumphs.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was surprised by that. And I went, we try to hide our failures kind of at all costs, unless you're a clown, and then you put a big old yellow ribbon around it.
Yeah.
But I'm not worried about the content thing. I have a lot of students who are interested in, like this is a podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So are interested in creating podcasts, contents, shorts. A lot of people are now doing like pitching projects, pitch decks, images of what you're thinking about, pitching it to producers, Netflix, all this
The key
stuff.
word you just said is short. You said
Yeah.
short. I mean, that's something to do with people's brains, of what they've come to and what present day culture is like. But that's an interesting, thought. The short versus the Marcel Marceau doing 2.5 hours by himself with, and things like that.
Yeah, but I think Marcel Marceau would have been great on TikTok. And now, because it's like those short, the mask of the old man, and now the mask of this, and now that, and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, I got to see him perform in, I don't know, his golden age, 50 years of Marcel Marceau or something. I saw him live at HSU. But so I think short,
HSU.
what's that?
Marcel performed it. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow, that's good. I didn't know that.
Yep. So I think there's something to short, like 7 seconds, like 2 minutes, like that. But there's also, you're also having to pitch a longer idea, and you better be clear about what your idea is. Hey, I got this idea for a comedy, 3 women, 2 of them are stand-up comics, and you got to say that in a short amount of time, but it has to be
the value of physical theater, right? I mean, physical theater teaches, and mime teaches clarity and economy of gesture and thought. I mean, it seems like maybe there's a golden age in front of us with physical theater,
I think there is a golden age in front of us. And I think a recent graduate of mine is now on a show on Amazon, and she's like one of the leads. She was struck by how many people in that room do not know how to play, or how to like direct actors to play and improvise and be spontaneous and make physical choices in the mix. It could just be a moment where you're fumbling around with your jacket before you put it on a hook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And because she's had that kind of physical training, she knows how to do that.
Mm-hmm. So what's your advice to young artists? How do they go about pursuing their creativity?
I think people need to find your teachers. Find your teachers. I think it's it's less about the place, I think, and more about the teachers. Find somebody that speaks the language you speak, or who absolutely doesn't, and who might rip your mind open in a different way. Find somebody that, I like how that person moves, or how that person thinks, or how that person builds, or whatever it is. I would say to keep making stuff all the time. Make stuff, fail, make more stuff. Find the people you like to make stuff with. And don't give up. I mean, something I believe in is there's a momentum to things. Like, James, your basketball piece, there's a momentum. I feel it whenever you talk about it. It's like there's a momentum behind it. Or somebody who's like, I'm thinking about going to grad school. I'm thinking about going to Europe there's a momentum. You can feel it, you can taste it. It's real. And it's also real when that momentum has dried up.
Yeah. And then what do you do?
So
then what do you do? What's the next thing when you feel like something's dried up and like there's no inspiration and you're feeling like the whole world is a mess? What do you do then?
I think that's where, what we learned in public school, in kindergarten: stop, look, and listen.
Yeah, when in doubt, don't move. Stop, look, and listen. That's a good point. So now, this is a little tricky, this next question, because maybe your administrators at UCSD shouldn't hear this, or might confuse them. So in some ways, I think the momentum is stopping in universities, in drama schools and universities. And it's important that people like you are faculty members now, to keep this momentum and to find these crevices of the future in that system that's been there forever. Because I think that's a big problem now. We're talking about where young people go to learn, because now we're saying, especially in what we do, that they can learn that many places, not necessarily in a university, which is so expensive and so and elite in some ways, and blah blah blah.
And
But
the impetus in the United States right now is that all children should go to college. There's such amount of pressure from the time you go from preschool to elementary school to high school. It's like you're trying to get to the best high school so that you can get to the best college. And it's like,
but the arts are a different
that's only
beast.
one path.
Yeah, the arts are a different beast because in some ways you can't take shortcuts in learning how to be an artist. You have to put in the time. And the structure of modern universities is becoming more shortened, and the templates are more fixed in some ways. So learning to be an artist is becoming more difficult in a university as we know it now setting. Something has to change, I think, in a lot of ways. So I don't know how you have any thoughts about
that.
How
do you feel about that, Stephen?
Yeah,
Okay, I could go on and on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a surge in universities. Students are demanding clowning. Students are demanding physical theater. Students are demanding what's now called devising.
Right.
So
it's kind of ridiculous because devising, like Shakespeare devised too, right?
Right.
And with a company and with an ensemble, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So all of it, if a university does not have these things as part of your training program, you're probably going to have them in the next year and a half. If not, then you're going to slowly drift off to sea because people are wanting.
That's good news for our producer because Mike Diaz, our producer, is a budding master teacher in physical theater.
Yeah.
So right now it's tough for him.
Oh, yeah. No, the Renaissance we're in the Renaissance of it.
Okay.
And I think it hasn't even really been revealed yet. But I think that's happening. So the world is in the US. This is what's wanting to happen in training places. I don't know if you know much about Black Mountain College.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
North Carolina?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah, it's an arts a retreat sort of a place. Yeah, that's an amazing artists in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
Across many disciplines too. I mean,
across many disciplines.
So dance is particularly important to that profile.
So why did you bring that up?
I brought that up because that, from what I've read about that was a group of people who said, we don't want to do it in a university setting. We want to have our own setting. We want to do it outside. We want to have like tending the land and eating together and having parties together, be part of it. We want it multidisciplinary. We want it. So I think what you're calling into question, which I think is in question, is what is happening and how much time it's given. I actually think time is the main thing because it's like, this experience is an hour and a half. This class is an hour and 50 minutes. This thing is 45 minutes. And it's like, once, whoever is breaking the clock and saying, we're going to do this for 4 hours. I mean, I'm just thinking of Yo-Yo Ma. You're not doing this for 2 hours. Or, the mime, you're practicing this every day. I don't know, DeCrew, you're doing these scales all the time, aren't you? Mm-hmm. I was doing the scales every day after school.
Well, you go to a music department, and if it's a good one, you can hear music in the music building at all hours. So they have practice rooms that you're supposed to use, which is, that's all the art should be like that, in a way.
That's interesting. That's it. So I'm not as pessimistic about it. I think a lot is happening in the universities, but it does depend who the leadership is, who's running these rooms, and the vision of the program. Right. If you believe this is a place where we're just creating people to go into film and TV, then that's what you're making. If you're believing that I believe that there has been no better time for a performer or a storyteller or somebody who can make their own content. And people are going to see it. People are going to watch it. Whether or not you're going to be able to make a financial living doing that solely, we don't know. But
things never change, right?
That was never promised.
great to hear such a optimistic response, and that, that feeds my soul. I'm so happy to hear that, because you're right in the midst of it. You're teaching these young people. You're in a university situation, and you're seeing that this is a possibility, which is wonderful.
But some tools really have to be learned, like the new technology of how to present yourself in these formats is really important, because we all know that video images can kill you. I mean, people make snap decisions about stuff. If it's not together, there's going to be a residue of feeling about that.
Yeah, totally. And well, now we're in the world of like augmented reality and virtual reality, which is another interest. I got to choreograph a virtual reality piece with 2 dancers. Did that in London for a Sundance Film Festival, and it premiered there. But it was a trip being in the world of being able to see. I'm not, I'd rather have cardboard and tape. That's my aesthetic. It's always been my Delarte roots. I don't need anything. But to be able to now see fireflies come close to you and witness this thing and see the leaves, branches, it's like, this is a whole nother world. And this world, through the mind of an imaginative physical performer, could be something.
Could be something.
Wonderful. So, Stephen,
do you have a theory about legacy or anything like that? Your legacy, is that interesting to you, or is your profile important? Or maybe the way I'm saying this question, it kind of pushes it.
How would you like to be remembered?
That's a better way to put it. Yeah.
I guess I'm going to take sort of like the legacy thing through Delarte, because that's maybe the longest sort of lineage I've been connected to. Knowing that Carlo Mazzone Clemente and Jane Hill founded Delarte, and, knowing that Commedia came through there, and then tracking through when I got the job at ACT, one of the first things I saw was an old patina covered, ripped up poster on a wall that had Carlo Mazzone Clemente as the movement teacher at ACT. And I was like, what?
That was his first appearance
in
California, was doing that sort of thing. Yeah.
So that's the lineage.
The lineage of that must have been in the early 70s, maybe late.
That was even earlier. It was late
60s.
Late 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So seeing that and knowing that, like Taming of the Shrew, that you all have probably seen with the Commedia version, and then being part of Delarte, and now it's in transitions, and what's happening, what's the future, everything is, what does the future look like? So I guess the lineage that I'm thinking about is the people who are passing things down, but also the spirit of what's being passed down.
Yeah, it's wonderful that we're going to have you on this in the same platform that Joan Shirley is in. We interviewed her earlier, so that's two opposite ends of the spectrum right there.
Totally.
That's always changing. Yeah.
I loved watching what she said, and it captures a moment. It's beautiful. So lineage, like my personal lineage, as somebody who's adopted, when my first son was born, that was my first blood relative I ever met.
I totally understand.
Wow.
We'll talk later about this.
Okay, so that's a longer thing.
Yeah.
So having now 3 kids.
Yeah.
And my kids are creative. They like to play. They like to joke around. It's like, and they like to engage. So I feel like, as far as I don't need no plaques, no statues. I do have a couple books that I want to write that might just collect some dust, but who knows? So that's gonna happen. But yeah, I'm not thinking that way yet. Maybe as I get older, I might think how important that would be. But for now, I just want to inspire audiences and students, and like keep going, keep making all the work.
Beautiful.
So what's the next? What's just to tie things up? tell us about a project that you're working on, some work that you're excited about? What's next in line for you right now?
Yeah. I'm leaving soon to go work on this project that is it's basically a comedy, like a farce, with an all black cast. I'm going to New York to work on this. It's basically a second rate Motown group. It's like a producer who's trying to get his hit produced by somebody, and it's like the backup singers are not good, and this mob is involved because we had to borrow money over there, and this didn't happen, we can't get studio time, and we just got kicked out. There's going to be a roller
period piece. I mean, is it like 60s, 70s? Yeah,
it's taking place in 70s in Chicago.
Awesome. That sounds great.
In Chicago, I know something about that.
Yeah.
Cool. But there's going to be a roller rink scene.
What was your favorite part of Chicago growing up there? Like, just anything, people, feature, geography. What if you had to explain to me what Chicago was like for you, what would you say?
What would I say? I mean, it was like all these festivals of different cultures. It was snow, it was wind. I delivered, as like a 10-year-old, I delivered newspapers to 2 60-story high-rises every day before school. So it's the Museum of Science and Industry for me. It's like it's riding the L train, going wherever you want as a kid. It's like a group of 15 friends every day navigating. So it's like more that it's the food, it's the barbecue. That's kind of my Chicago.
You have to come back and visit.
I know, it's changed a lot. Trust me, it's changed a lot.
Karen and I are going to talk. We have some ideas in the works.
Yeah, we'll bring you into Chicago to hang out.
That's awesome. Wait, I got to tell you this one other project I'm working on.
Yeah.
Oh yes, good.
It's in my head. It's not there yet. It's going to be either a 2-person or a 3-person clown piece with not a whole lot of language. It's basically going to be 3 snipers. The clowns are all professional snipers, even though they bungle and mess everything up. But they're the ones who killed JFK and Martin Luther King.
Unbelievable. That's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
JFK so that's and Martin Luther King.
Wow. Yeah, they killed both of them, and they were hired, and it just like accidentally worked.
Wow.
And of course, nobody's looking for them because it's them.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow, I can't wait to see that.
What do you want to be when you grow up? This is the last question.
Yeah, give me some.
I really want to learn how to cook a really good ramen. I love ramen. I want to learn how to cook ramen. I will have made it. There's some places I still need to go. I love traveling, so there's some places I still got to go. I love getting lost. So kind of growing up means I get to go back. I get to shed more and more responsibility and just be the lost stranger in the strange land. And that's kind of what I hope to be when I get older.
Lost stranger in the land.
Bravo. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been wonderful having a conversation with you.
This has been wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you both so much. It's a lot to take in and think about. And thanks for what you're doing for the field. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's it, ladies and gentlemen, and others who are just as important wherever you may be. This is the Mime Radio Show with Stephen Buescher.